Good afternoon. This mind, deluded, it's samsara. Awakened, it's nirvana. Just one of countless, numberless expressions in Zen that sum up, essentially express the truth, reality, call it what you like. Huh? Once you've really realized it, the words can be dispensed with, done away with. And yet, generation after generation after generation, for hundreds of years, monks, nuns, lay people who have deeply realized this truth, reality, if you like, have given expression to it in their own way. These expressions can be helpful. They can point us in the right direction, so to speak, if we take them to heart. They can also become another obstacle, something that you need to copy or imitate. You take the words and miss the essential meaning or significance. You're left with the words. So beware when you take up these Zen words. They're not meant to give you something. Perhaps it's better to say they're offered so that you can let it be all taken away, so that you can see what this is. This mind, the mind you now have, yes. The mind you now are, yes. Deluded? You know the routine, don't you? It's samsara. Awakened? Maybe you've had a hint here or there, huh? Oh, so that's what this nirvana stuff is all about, huh? One of the very early Chinese Zen expressions, this is something that Matsu, or in Japanese Baso, said. He's considered the first Zenistic Zen person, if you will. He was the person who was famous or infamous for kicking people, shouting at them, knocking them over. He would do anything to help them realize this mind. Before that time, Buddhism was a little more of a scholastic endeavor. There were sutras and shastra commentaries on the sutras, and they were studied very seriously, taken very seriously, as they should be. Meditation was practiced in great detail. So what is considered quintessential, essential Zen, the unique feature of Zen, one way of expressing it was this: Matsu Baso, 1200, 1,300 years ago. He would do anything to help the other realize this mind, including shouting at them, which wasn't the custom so much before that, kicking them, knocking them over. Of course, this too can be abused, can be defiled, can become Zen play, Zen pseudo-action, Zen imitation. Listen to this guy, Matsu Baso. This is how he worked, if you will. An outstanding monk who went on to become a Zen master asked the master Matsu Baso, I come seeking awakening. I come seeking awakening. Matsu, the master, says, without realizing your own treasure. You understand treasure? Something very precious, Without realizing your own treasure, you leave home and come seeking here. I don't have a thing. What are you seeking? The monk then says, what is my treasure? What is my treasure? Well, on other occasions, this teacher, Matsu Baso, may have yelled at him or knocked him over, but maybe he had had a good breakfast and he was rather in a good mood, so he kindly responded. You now asking, that is your treasure, perfectly complete. It lacks nothing. Use it freely. Why seek elsewhere? You see what he's saying. Have you realized it or not? It makes no difference. As a matter of fact, you, this mind, you now asking, there is the treasure, perfect and complete. It lacks nothing. Use it freely. Why run around seeking? Oh, with this, that monk awakened. He realized the words. He awakened to the fact himself. Who or what is that? What did he awaken to? Baso, Matsu, the teacher, gave him nothing. He even said quite clearly, I don't have a thing. What do you come here seeking? By taking everything away, he allowed that monk to realize, well, as he used the metaphor, the treasure at hand. That monk, by the way, had a nickname. He was called the Great Pearl. It has to do with the Chinese characters. Great, literally, the Great Pearl. You know, a pearl in a clam. Sometimes a pearl grows. It's actually through irritation. But it can develop what's a very precious jewel, called a pearl. So this monk came to be called the Great Pearl. He then wrote also something. The thing I just gave you was an exchange, what's called a mondo exchange, between a monk and Matsu or Baso, where that monk, the Great Pearl, awakens. Later, that monk, the Great Pearl, wrote a treatise. It's questions, in a similar way, questions and answers, But probably he himself wrote the questions as well as the answers, unlike this original exchange with his teacher. This was apparently an actual exchange between the Great Pearl monk and the master Matsu. Again, later that monk, the Great Pearl, wrote a treatise with questions. This is how it begins, his very famous book. It's kind of a Zen record. Question: what method should we practice in order to awaken? It was basically his question, remember, right? Now he's just putting it in a kind of a formula. Question: what method should we practice in order to awaken? The Great Pearl's answer: it can be attained only through immediate realization. Immediate, unmediated, huh? Not through time, through some process. Immediate realization. What's the next question going to be, Carl? Question: what is immediate realization? He wants to make it as clear as possible. What is immediate realization? The Great Pearl responds: immediate means ridding ourselves of delusions instantaneously, in an instant, not through some kind of a process. Again, immediate means ridding ourselves of delusions immediately. Realization means awakening is not something to be attained. He just said it was to be attained, but now he's saying actually it's not something you can attain. You have to realize it, awaken to it. Again, immediate means ridding ourselves of delusions instantaneously. Realization means awakening is not something to be attained. Question: from where do we start this practice? Good question, huh? From where do we start this practice? The Great Pearl's answer: you must start from the very root. Otherwise, one branch after another, it's endless. Huh? You must start from the very root. Next question, Carl.
What is the very root?
Yes. What is that root? Answer, Carl.
Here.
Even more direct.
You.
Even more direct.
Now.
That's here, now. We got the space and time shit already. That's irrelevant. That's secondary. That's secondary. You, well, yeah. Mind is the root, the character for the heart or the mind. Huh? Everyone's realized self, if you will. Huh? Mind is the root. Hi. This mind. You heard that before? About this mind. What was that?
Deluded.
Deluded is what? Samsara. And this mind, awakened, is samsara. No, nirvana. Are they really so different? Find out. Once again, what is the root? Mind is the root. This mind is the root. Without that, here, where's here? Now. Now? Which now? The same problem with mind, huh? But when you realize it from within, your questions are answered once and for all. Better yet, they come to an end, don't they? There are 7,642 other quotes that I could give showing the same thing, but shall we leave it at 2? Is that okay? Is that enough?
No.
Does anyone have a question about this mind, as absurd as it is? It's like saying, oh, tell me, what is my mind? Does anyone have a real question from out of the practice about this mind?
Yeah.
Piotr.
How is it deluded?
Good question. How? You see what you're doing?
Thinking?
That's how. Well, that's one way, yes. And yet, it cannot be deluded. Have you seen that?
Yeah, sometimes.
Again, there are many expressions, for example, from the sutras, saying that the mind is originally bright and awakened. It is only adventitious dust. In other words, it is only temporary time, space, desire, ignorance, and so on, that cover it over. But originally, and in a sense, always, it is clear and pure, undefiled. And yet, what do we do with our mind all the time? You see how important your question is and also how ridiculous it is? You already know. You've been doing it all your life. And yet, it doesn't really take hold. When you see all the way through, one of the things that becomes clear is, oh, I don't just come to this now. This is what I have always been. Even in my most deluded moments, it was this. But boy, it can really get clouded over, can't it? Yes, yes. Deluded, the world of samsara appears. Huh?
Mind and ego self mean the same thing?
Well, a good question, because in the West, we want to be very clear. Self, true self. I tend not to use terms like true self, because then, oh, okay, as opposed to a false self, right? Real self, original self, Buddha nature. There are many, many terms, aren't there, huh? We're using philosophical or psychological terms in the West a lot, like the ego, huh? In the Far East, this term, just 4 strokes, a very simple, again, it's what they thought or what they know from the little 3,000 years ago, dissecting bodies, what the human heart kind of looked like. So it was the heart, which is also the mind. They don't think of this as the mind, rather it's a more total thing. So it covers thinking, feeling, and willing. And as a matter of fact, in the Buddhist writings and the Zen writings, it often uses that same term for the ego self, the deluded self. This mind deluded is what? It's samsara. It uses the same character. When you read it, you have to know, in a sense, what it's saying in order to know what it's saying. It's very in a sense, vague for the outsider. They will also use the same term for the awakened mind. Maybe because in the end there is no absolute difference. You see? This mind. Huh? You see, they didn't use another expression in that phrase. They didn't say, your ego mind deluded is samsara. Your awakened mind, true mind, is nirvana. You see? It's the same subject. But for us, it can be very important, perhaps necessary at first, to have some understanding. Huh? Which mind is that? Well, well, which one is it? Huh? They do have other technical terms. Sometimes they use small mind for what we would think of as the ego, huh? The small mind. And the great mind, or in Zen often, no mind, literally no mind for what we think of as awakening. You see? But they're not simply two different things to begin with. So, how to say it? We can be very accurate in the West, huh? Are we talking about the ego mind or the true self? Whereas in the Far East, they may use the same character if you read a text. Here they mean the ego self, what we would call. Here they mean the awakened self. Why? How did you put it in the one-on-one earlier? Two sides of the same coin. You understand? The very effort of the self, ego self, to which one, so I know how to now chase after that one and get away from that one. It doesn't work. You see? There are no two minds. There is this mind. And yet, the validity of your question. If it's deluded, oh, it's samsara. I don't have to tell you about that, do I? Awakened, same one, same subject, not another one. You see? That same one, awakened, nirvana. They're not two different things. Clear? And yet we spend our life practicing to realize that. Do you want to say anything else?
It's not clear that once you mentioned that the ego self itself is split. So how can it be other thing?
I'll look at it as I just mentioned. This mind split. There's samsara. There's life and there's death. There's you and there's me. There's good and there's evil. There's what is and what I want to be. Huh? Awakened, it's nirvana. Now you see what the ego self does. Okay, I got it. Now there's that ego self which is split, and so there must be the real, true mind which is not split. So I'm going to split from that and go for this. You see what you're doing? You're just creating another split. That's why we do what we do. That's why we have a retreat. That's why we have Zazen. So that we can wake up to this fact, so to speak, from the inside. Otherwise, it's endless, right? Oh, okay, so now there's a false self bad, true self good. Who makes that distinction?
would you say mind arising is samsara, no abiding is nirvana?
Okay, going back to the expression from the Diamond Sutra that the guy who became the sixth patriarch just happened to hear, and he had an insight. Mind arises without abiding. So this is a very good example from a Mahayana sutra of the same thing. Mind arises. So you might say, well, this is the duality. Huh? Mind arises, anger, hatred, love, caring, all kinds of things arise in the mind. Yes, mind arises. We can say, oh, there. Tentatively, for now, we can say that's the ego self. But the expression is mind arises without abiding. In other words, it doesn't attach or get stuck to anything that arises in the mind. But they're not two things to begin with. That's what the Diamond Sutra is trying to make clear. So if we parse it, we can say, okay, mind arises. That can become samsara. How? If we abide in it, if we make it into something. But what this statement from the Diamond Sutra is saying is, that's not the problem, mind arising. We live in the world. There's cold and heat. There's a body, there's a mind. We live in this world. Now we can talk about time and space, here and now and later. Right? But it's inevitable. Unless we're dreaming, this is a world of, it was yesterday, today, Saturday, there'll be a tomorrow. Yes. Yes. Mind arises. All of our senses, there is a coming and a going. Yes. And then there is an arising of perhaps some desire. But again, this sutra is saying, mind arises. All of that happens. Yes, we live in the world. We don't go to some place else called nirvana. We don't have to. All of this is going on in space, in time, for me. This is not a lie. It's not false. But if it all occurs without abiding, without getting stuck in it, without attaching to it, that's nirvana. But again, the real subtlety of the sutra is, if you read it, it's only about 40 pages long, the whole thing. But the point is that those two can be distinguished for practical purposes, as we're doing now. Mind arises, no problem, if it doesn't abide, if it doesn't get stuck. But those two are not simply two different things to begin with. This is what the mind truly does. If we say the awakened mind, oh, not the deluded mind, well, it's not another mind, right? But awakened, it does not get stuck. It does not attach. It does not abide anywhere because it doesn't need to. The deluded ego self, whatever you want to call it, samsaric self, can't help but do that because it doesn't know what it is yet. It's not clearly realized. It can't come to rest as it is. So it seeks. It's subtle, but very, very clear once it's seen through. Okay? Does that help you at all? I don't think so. You still want to continue, Tundi?
Next time.
Next time. We still have some time. Next time, this time.
There seems to be one more way that they use mind, and I kind of find it helpful. As where it's understood more like a substance of everything, really,
Like what?
like a substance of everything that happens.
Circumstance?
Substance.
Substance.
As in
So substance.
Yeah, that's my
Okay.
Russian accent.
Substance, okay, thank you.
Yeah, so like when they say like let me remember, like the sentient beings, illusory guises are all like flowers in the sky.
Yeah,
They all take place within the Tathagata's mind of complete awakening, something like this.
yes,
You
yes.
know, I find that actually really helpful because it makes it very clear that also the delusion, like it really doesn't matter. I mean, delusion is the same thing, really. It's just you don't see clearly, but it's all within awakening, really. And there is something in this that I find really
Yeah, we can say once,
pacifying in a way.
yeah, once it's clearly awakened, that becomes self-evident, you might say. Can you give that quote again?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sentient beings, illusory guises, are all like flowers in the sky. They all happen within the Tathagata's mind of complete awakening. Something like that.
Yeah, so in other words, all of the delusions, the suffering, the samsara that we speak of, that we experience, actually, this is a very Mahayana.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
It all happens within the mind of, well, the mind of nirvana. There's room for all of that in this mind. The point is to what? To realize, to awaken to that fact.
But it is very pragmatic, I find, like because it really turns out so. Like when, in moments of clarity, like you see, there is just whatever you do. I mean, you can't escape awakening. Really, like it's obvious. It's just everywhere. Like
So what happens to the samsara when you realize that?
what happens to the samsara?
Yes. All the things that you were wrestling with, struggling with just a minute before, what happens?
Yeah, I mean, you stop struggling, and when you stop struggling, there's no samsara.
Exactly.
No.
When that split
Yeah.
stops trying to put itself back together again, you realize it was whole and complete to begin with.
Yeah.
Then even more precise or succinct expressions like samsara itself is nirvana. What? Why do we do retreats like this? Last night some of us were sitting through the night. But if samsara is nirvana, balasho, why are we practicing? Huh?
Realize it.
Well, okay, that's a good way to put it. To realize that fact. Without realizing it, well, then it's nice words. But the point of the words are to have us, to help us realize it. Realize what? What we really are. Realize this mind. Right? This mind. This mind. What more do you need? In what sense do you need to get rid of the deluded mind? Tundi? This helps you to see what practice really is. But again, as all of these expressions are showing, pointing us to, it's not a matter of getting rid of this defiled, ugly, confused with a bad, sweep it under the rug, don't want, and finding some ideal, perfect mind. This mind, there is no other. And yet, the point of practice is to fully realize it, that's all. To wake up to it fully. To wake up to it fully. How can you not fully manifest that fact? Do you see? That's what love is. That's what compassion is, right? Realizing it, how can you not do what you can for others? You can't wake them up, but you can kind of shake their pillow a little. You can do some things to help, but you don't need to wake them up. We might say, they're not really asleep, but for them to realize that. Take the words to heart. Realize them for yourself. Otherwise, they just become more words. Yes?
Is it possible on the way of this realization that sometimes we are feeling the other part of the coin and then it disappears, and so before it becomes continuous for a lifetime, there is glimpse of watching or connecting?
Yes, yes. It's a good final question because it brings us back to the fact that, as I said in the very beginning, we're always touching it. It's not something distant and far away. How could it be? It's this mind. We're always touching it. What do you love to do?
There are a lot of things.
For example?
Walking in the nature.
Okay, yeah, me too. When you walk in nature, do you have to try and become one?
If I'm not deluded at the moment.
But as a matter of fact, often when you're in nature, you find yourself at peace.
Two days ago, I saw two games in the forest here.
To,
Game.
Deers.
oh, deer.
Sorry. Deer. And today I walked there again, and I'm waiting for the deers. So that's my mind was deluded. So it was hard. First, I have to understand that feeling, and then let the nature unfold for me, not the deers.
Yeah, I saw the deers a little while ago, and they said, we're not going back to that same place again. Been there and done that. But what I'm trying to say is, we all know, but we forget time and again. We all know from our experience, every day of our lives, almost every moment, we are, to some extent, as you suggest, losing ourselves in a very good way, becoming one with what or who we love. Listening to music, performing music that we love. You're not just playing the notes. If you are, you're not there. Do you know what I mean? There's nothing mysterious at all. But we don't realize what we're doing. Whenever you do something that you are naturally good at, that you love, to some extent you're, in a very good way, losing if we call the ego self. And finding what? Well, let's put it bluntly. When you're with the one you love, you lose yourself in a very good way in the one you love. And you find yourself in the one you love. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's not just with the one you love, though. It can be walking in nature, music, anything. In a sense, everything. But depending on who you are, you're naturally at one with certain things. Some people with music, or with a beautiful sunset, walking in nature. Talking with a friend, walking your dog. I know people who say, walking my dog, that's it for me. It could be almost anything, because it is this mind. But the point is, we go into it and then we come out of it. And as you just showed, right? Oh, I'm going back today and I want to see those deer again. Oh, they went, right? But that experience, in that experience, not afterwards when you say, wow, no, in that experience, that moment itself, in a sense, doesn't make any sense, does it? Huh? There was no self. Or we could say that self was the whole world. Does that make sense? What if there was no self that you needed to come back to, Balazs? Thank you again.